Hello, this is Delano again, and today we're going to be talking about configuring public key authentication on the Git server. In the last video, I spoke about configuring a Git server on the Windows operating system, so if you haven't seen that video, please check it out before watching this one. Alright, so let's get started. The first thing that I want to show you, if we open up the Bitvice SSH server control panel, is that there's an evaluation period. However, if you're going to be using this server for personal use, you do not need to purchase an activation code. However, if this is for commercial use, you do need to purchase a license. Alright? I could show you that on the Bitvice website right now. It's pretty easy to find. If you go to the Bitvice website, click on licensing, you could see that under personal use, no activation code is required for non-commercial personal use. Alright? So, again, if you're going to be using this for commercial purposes, you need to purchase a license. However, if you're not, it's completely free, as you can see here on the website. Okay, so let's get started. The first thing we're going to do is click on Edit Advanced Settings. Today we're going to be using virtual groups and virtual accounts rather than Windows groups and Windows accounts, because virtual groups and accounts enable you to manage accounts within the SSH server rather than having to create a new Windows user every time you're going to add a new user to the server. Alright? So first thing we're going to do is click on virtual groups, and you can see that by default there's this virtual users group, and we're going to just use that. So let's just click on edit. The first setting that we're going to take a look at is the security context, and this is the context or the Windows user context that's used by the virtual user once they have connected to the SSH server. Alright, so the two most commonly used are Windows local account and Windows domain account. Today we're going to be using a Windows domain account, and I'm going to specify the domain of the user, and I'm going to be specifying the username. Alright, we're going to leave these settings as they are here. I'm going to go down to password authentication. We're going to disable that. That's for NTLM and Kerberos authentication. The only thing we really want is public key authentication. That's what we're interested in. I'm going to leave that allowed. Here under public keys, we could specify keys that are allowed to be used by users of this group. But we're going to be specifying those in the separate virtual accounts in this configuration. Alright, so let's skip that and move down. Alright, so here I'm going to specify for the home directory or the initial terminal shell directory, I'm going to specify c/repositories. Alright, and I'm going to enable permit exec requests. That's necessary for the push and clone. Alright, and that's it. We're just going to leave everything else as is and click OK. So the next thing I'm going to do is configure virtual accounts. So click on virtual accounts and click add to add a virtual account. Here I'm going to specify the name Tim. I'm not going to specify virtual account password because we're not going to be using password authentication. For the virtual group, I'm going to specify the one that we just configured, the default virtual users group. Most of these other settings, security context and login settings, will be derived from the default group, which is the virtual users group here. And the only setting that we really want to configure at this point is the public key setting. We want to add the public key for the user Tim. Alright, so let's click on public keys, and we need to import a key. However, before we do that, we need to create a key and import the public key from that user. All right, so we could see how to do that by going over to the remote computer. So now that we're on the remote computer, we're going to create, or generate rather, the public and private keys. First thing we're going to do is open up the Git bash. I'm going to enter a command to go to the directory where the keys are stored. So that's cd, a home directory, and it's in a folder called .ssh. Let's list the files. Right now we only have the known host file, as we can see. We're going to generate the private and public key. To do that, we enter the command ssh-keygen. The type we specify as RSA, and the amount of bytes 4096, and we're going to specify the email. I'll use the email that I've configured with Git in the global config. For me, that is so we're generating the public and private RSA key pair, as you can see here. Just click enter when this message comes up. You want to keep the default name. And it's more secure to specify passwords just in case your keys get compromised. That person will have to enter the password to your key. So here I'll enter a password. Specify that again. Alright, so those are generated. Now we could list the files again. And we see that the ID RSA and ID RSA.pub files are now listed. The ID underscore RSA is the private key. ID underscore RSA.pub is the public key. Alright, so another thing we can do is we could take a look at the public key just to show you what it looks like. Right? So you see the type SSH RSA is listed first, then the key is actually encrypted there, followed by the email that we specified. Alright? So there's another command to copy that into your clipboard. We'll enter the public key name. Alright, so we see that if we right click here, we've pasted it. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to go back over to the server now and import this public key. So back on the server, we could now import the public keys that we've just created. Alright, if you don't remember how we got here, just close this out. We went to the configuration or editing the settings of the virtual user, and we clicked on public keys. Now click import, and as you can see here, it's asking us for a file. So I'm going to go to the desktop, and I'm going to click new. I'm going to create a text file. You could really create any file, could have any extension, and I'm going to paste into that file the public key that I copied to the clipboard. Save. Now just click on the file, click open, and now the file is imported. So you can see the algorithm that we specified, the RSA, size of 4096, and the comment. Click close. Now we'll click OK, and click OK again to save the settings. And now what we're going to do, we set up the user, Windows user Tim built as the security context for the virtual group. So we're going to create password hash for that. Alright, so click Manage Password Cache. Add item. I'm going to enter the domain information, user information. This will be different if you've created not a domain user account, but a regular local Windows account. I'm going to enter the account name and the password. Click close. So now we can see we have one entry in the password cache. Now we'll go to the C drive and create the directory that we specified in the group settings. Just to recall, if we go back here to edit advanced settings, click on virtual groups, the group virtual users, click edit. You can see that we specified on the C drive a folder repositories. Let's go to the C drive. Let's create that folder. In here, let's create an empty repository in a new folder. We'll call this test.git. Git bash. Within this, we're going to turn this to an empty repository, so we'll enter the command git init bear. Alright. So now let's go back over to that host computer and try to clone the repository we've just created. So back on the host computer, let's open the git bash. And now, let's enter the command to clone the repository. That's git clone. And we're going to enter the alternate SSH syntax. So instead of SSH :/ and then user @ server, we're actually going to just use the alternate syntax, which is just user @ server, and then the path. So the user we created was Tim, @ the server is OK server. Enter a colon after that. Now we're in the home directory, which we specified as C / repositories. And let's just enter the repository name that we created, which was test.git. When we created the key, we entered a password. So I'm going to enter that password now. And the repository was cloned. Let me just drag it over so you can see it. Test. And this is the, I'll drag that over as well, empty repository that we created. If this was not empty, you would see the files listed here, right? This folder, the .git folder, which is really all your backups, this is equivalent to, on the server, the test.git folder that we created. All right? Let's just quickly demonstrate. So let's create a new file. Let's enter some information. Save. Now let's open up the Git bash. Let's type git status. Let's add that file. Commit. Let's push that. All right. So we could see that we, through public key authentication, are now able to push and pull from the server. Okay guys, so that's all for today. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and check out the next video in which I'll demonstrate the SCP secure copy utility to copy between the server and the local computer. I'll also demonstrate how to use that utility to initialize Git repositories. All right? So see you next time.